Barack Obama pointed at him and shouted, "Stop him right now." Security rushed in, but it was already too late. Senator John Kennedy was at the mic, and what he said next stunned the entire room and the world. You won't believe what happened. Before diving into the story, comment where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss the latest stories. Stop him. Obama yells, but it's too late. Stop him right now. Barack Obama's voice echoed across the hall, sharper and louder than anyone had heard from him in years. His finger pointed, unwavering, toward a determined figure walking straight down the center aisle. The crowd, previously buzzing with anticipation, fell into stunned silence. Security guards, alert but clearly caught off guard, sprang into motion, weaving through the rows of political elites and media personalities. But by then, it was already too late. Senator John Kennedy wasn't slowing down. He walked with purpose, a fire in his eyes and his head held high, refusing to be ignored. The same man often dismissed as just a comedian with a Senate seat was now stepping into a moment that no one could have predicted. As Kennedy reached the steps to the stage, there was a ripple of confusion, gasps, murmurs, and even a few shouted objections from the front rows. Barack Obama, standing at the podium, leaned forward in disbelief, his hand raised again, signaling the guards to intervene. But Kennedy was already too close. The guards hesitated. Should they physically remove a sitting U.S. senator on live national television in front of hundreds of cameras? Before anyone could answer that question, Kennedy was already gripping the microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen," he said, his deep Southern drawl slicing through the tension like a knife. "I reckon I've got something to say before we all pat each other on the back and pretend everything's just fine." Gasps turned into stunned silence. Cameras zoomed in. Obama, visibly trying to maintain composure, took a step back. The spotlight was now fully on Kennedy. This was no longer Obama's moment. It was Kennedy's. For weeks leading up to this event, one of the most high-profile policy summits in Washington, D.C., rumors had swirled that Kennedy had been denied a speaking slot. Officially, the committee claimed there were time constraints. Unofficially, everyone knew the truth. Kennedy's reputation for saying the unexpected made him a risk. This was a carefully choreographed event meant to boost Obama's image and unite the political elite. It wasn't the place for unscripted voices, but John Kennedy wasn't having it. He had arrived uninvited, slipping past staff with the help of a few sympathetic aides, dressed in a simple dark suit with his signature American flag pin proudly displayed. He didn't come with a speechwriter. He didn't come with handlers. He came with something much more dangerous, his unfiltered voice. "Now, I respect President Obama. I truly do," Kennedy began. "But I didn't come here to sit quietly while the same polished speeches keep getting recycled like soda cans." The crowd was frozen, unsure whether to boo, clap, or just hold their breath. "The truth is, the American people are tired," he continued. "Tired of politicians playing nice on stage and doing nothing when the cameras are off. Tired of pretending unity is just a matter of smiling during a speech." Obama, to his credit, remained silent, but his eyes betrayed a mix of shock and frustration. Kennedy wasn't done. "We've got families choosing between groceries and gas, schools teaching our kids everything except what they really need, and small towns drying up while D.C. hosts summits with catered shrimp cocktails." A ripple of applause broke out from the back rows. "And what do we get in return? Speeches, promises, hashtags. Look, I didn't come here to cause a scene. I came here to say what millions of Americans would say if they had this microphone." The cameras panned across the audience, senators with jaws clenched, journalists furiously typing, aides whispering into earpieces. This was not the script they had expected. This was real. Kennedy took one final glance toward Obama before delivering the line that would go viral by the end of the day. "Mr. President, you can send security. You can turn off the lights. But you can't silence a voice that speaks for the people." And with that, he stepped back. No dramatic exit. No mic drop. Just silence, and the stunned realization that something unforgettable had just happened. Obama stepped forward again, adjusting the microphone. His words would come, but they would now follow a moment that belonged to someone else. That in just under 3 minutes, John Kennedy had flipped the script, stolen the spotlight, and reminded the world of one unshakable truth. When someone dares to speak from the heart, loud, raw, and uninvited. People listen. The incident took place during a high-profile policy summit in Washington, D.C., a glittering, heavily publicized event held in the capital's most prestigious conference center. Banners for unity and the American future hung across the entrance. Journalists, top government officials, and major political influencers filled every seat. The energy was electric. Cameras were positioned for the perfect angles. The world was watching, and at the center of it all stood Barack Obama, former president, respected global figure, and keynote speaker for the evening. He was set to deliver a powerful speech that would highlight the state of democracy in America, how division must be replaced with dialogue, and how the country could move forward together. The script had been reviewed a dozen times. Every word had been weighed, measured, and approved. Everything about this summit was carefully choreographed, except what was about to happen next. What the cameras didn't show, at least not yet, was that trouble had been brewing quietly. Behind the velvet curtains, just hours before the event, Senator John Kennedy, Louisiana's straight-shooting, sharp-witted voice in Congress, had sent a formal request to the summit's organizing committee. He wanted 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes to offer what he called a dose of truth to the room. Kennedy was no stranger to controversy. Known for his deadpan one-liners and unapologetically blunt takes, he had built a reputation for cutting through political niceties with brutal honesty. He was either loved or loathed, rarely anything in between. The committee's response? Flat no. Officially, they said his tone might distract from the unity message. But behind closed doors, whispers told a different story. Obama doesn't want him up there, one aide confided to a reporter. Too unpredictable. Too risky. Kennedy took the rejection personally. He believed, knew, that the real reason he was being sidelined wasn't about unity. It was about control, about managing the message, about keeping uncomfortable truths out of the spotlight. And so, when the live broadcast began and the bright lights hit the stage, the world tuned in expecting a polished speech about bipartisan hope. What they didn't expect was a Southern senator to break protocol, and possibly history, by showing up uninvited. As Barack Obama walked confidently onto the stage, greeted by a roaring standing ovation. Everything appeared to be going according to plan. But just as he reached the podium, adjusting the mic, something shifted in the crowd. People began murmuring. A tall figure in a dark suit was walking down the center aisle, directly toward the stage. It was Senator John Kennedy. At first, some assumed he was simply taking a front-row seat. But his pace never slowed. With each step, heads turned. Staffers in the wings began to panic. The summit director, seated just off stage, grabbed a headset and barked into the mic. "Security, we have a situation." Obama paused. He squinted toward the crowd, quickly realizing who the approaching figure was. "Stop him," he said quietly. Then again, louder this time. "Stop him. Right now." Security guards started moving, but it was already too late. Kennedy, calm and defiant, stepped confidently up the stairs. You could hear a pin drop. The senator walked with a purpose, not like a man trespassing, but like someone walking into his rightful place. Obama turned to face him fully now, visibly tense. Into the microphone, still hot and broadcasting live, he muttered, "Get him off." The audience gasped, but Kennedy had already reached the podium. Without flinching, he leaned into the mic and said the words that instantly shifted the entire mood of the room. "Now, I didn't come here to crash the party, but I did come here to say what nobody else will, and what every American sitting at home is dying to hear." Even the security guards froze, unsure whether they should intervene or step aside. This wasn't just a disruption anymore. This was political theater at its rawest. Obama, visibly caught between protocol and optics, took a calculated step back. He could interrupt. He could argue. But if he physically forced Kennedy off the stage now, it would look like censorship on live national TV. And that's exactly what Kennedy was counting on. This was no accident. It was a calculated, high-stakes move from a man who knew exactly what he was doing, and who he was doing it for. In that moment, the summit's tightly wound script unraveled, and the entire nation braced for what Kennedy would say next. As the room buzzed with confusion and tension, Senator John Kennedy took a moment to adjust the microphone. His movements were steady, measured, almost defiant. He looked out over the sea of suits, ties, polished shoes, and perfectly rehearsed expressions. The audience, filled with journalists, political veterans, and high-powered aides, had fallen eerily silent. It was the kind of silence that made your skin crawl. The kind that came right before an explosion. Kennedy cleared his throat. One deep breath. Then he began. Now, I didn't come here to cause trouble, but someone needs to say what everyone in this room is thinking. It hit like a jolt of electricity. No one had expected those words. Not from him. Not here. There were a few gasps. Someone in the third row dropped their phone. An aide leaned over and whispered frantically into a walkie-talkie. But Kennedy didn't flinch. He went on, his southern drawl slicing through the silence. We're living in a country where the people feel more forgotten than ever. Forgotten by the people in this room. Forgotten by the policies that promise everything and deliver nothing. And while speeches are great, action is better. He paused. Let me tell you something. Unity doesn't come from scripted speeches. Unity comes from truth. And sometimes, truth hurts. You could feel it in the air. The audience didn't know how to respond. Some glanced toward Obama, waiting for a reaction. Others stared at Kennedy like they were seeing him for the first time. For all the flashy political events, all the high-dollar panels and headline-grabbing statements, this wasn't polished. It wasn't filtered. It was raw, and that made it powerful. The cameras, rolling live, captured Obama as he stood behind Kennedy, caught off guard but trying to remain composed. His lips were pressed together. His arms were crossed. His usually unshakable calm seemed a little shaken. Kennedy turned toward him. Mr. President, with all due respect, he paused again. Everyone leaned in. We need more honesty. And less theater. America is not a TV show. It's not about applause. It's about the people scraping by, wondering if their kids will have a better life than they did. That was it. The room exploded. It started with a few hands clapping. Then came a wave of thunderous applause. The sound echoed off the walls like a clap of thunder. People rose to their feet. Some applauded out of agreement. Others clapped in awe of the moment's sheer audacity. Even those who disagreed couldn't help but acknowledge what they had just witnessed. Kennedy didn't react. He didn't smile or bow. He wasn't grandstanding. He was standing there because he believed every word he said. I know this probably wasn't on the official program, he added, but the American people didn't vote for programs. They voted for truth. They voted for leaders who will fight for them, not smile on camera and then vanish behind closed doors. The applause grew louder. A few camera operators were already texting their editors. Social media feeds began lighting up. On TikTok, on Twitter, on live streams, it was everywhere. Inside the summit, the atmosphere had completely shifted. Obama, who had come to deliver a message of hope and unity, now stood silently behind a man who had just challenged the very premise of the event. Still, he remained composed. His years of presidential experience showed in the way he didn't interrupt, didn't push back. But even his closest allies could tell this wasn't how it was supposed to go. Kennedy closed with a statement that would soon be plastered on every headline, thumbnail, and podcast title in America. If telling the truth makes me the bad guy, then so be it. But I'd rather be booed for honesty than cheered for pretending everything's fine. Because it's not. And the people out there, they know it. With that, he stepped back. No dramatics. No mic drop. Just one man, speaking truth in a room full of politics. The entire summit paused. Obama slowly returned to the microphone. He cleared his throat. A faint smile crossed his face, but it didn't quite reach his eyes. Well, he began. That certainly wasn't in the script. Laughter followed. Nervous, uncertain laughter. And just like that, everyone knew the summit had changed. The narrative had shifted. The moment belonged to Kennedy. And somewhere across America, millions of people watching at home sat a little straighter, replayed that moment, and said quietly to themselves, finally, someone said it. It didn't take long. Within minutes of Senator John Kennedy's uninvited speech at the D.C. summit, the internet erupted. The moment, raw, unexpected, and caught entirely on live broadcast, was already being clipped, captioned, and shared. At lightning speed, the hashtag Kennedy versus Obama skyrocketed to the #1 trending topic on Twitter. TikTok was flooded with dramatic edits of Kennedy walking up to the stage, set to suspenseful music and freeze frames of Obama's stunned expression. On YouTube, Political influencers were scrambling to upload reaction videos, eager to weigh in on what many were already calling the speech of the year. The internet loves a twist, and this was more than just political theater. It felt like a reckoning. People weren't just watching Kennedy's words, they were feeling them. He walked in like a cowboy and dropped the truth like a bomb. One viral tweet read, "No notes, no teleprompter, just fire," said a TikTok creator with over 2 million views in under 2 hours. Every major media outlet ran the story. Some praised Kennedy for his courage. Others criticized him for hijacking the event. But the noise only amplified the signal. Kennedy had said what millions of Americans had been thinking, but no one in power had dared to say aloud. What struck viewers the most wasn't just the drama or tension. It was the authenticity that in a political world often dominated by polished talking points, perfectly timed applause lines, and carefully coordinated optics. Kennedy's appearance felt like something else entirely. Unfiltered, unapproved, unstoppable. He hadn't shown up with a carefully prepared speech. There were no political consultants behind him, no flashy graphics, no slogan banners. He came with just his voice, and he used it to speak from the heart. "This isn't about being Republican or Democrat," Kennedy had said. "It's about being real with the American people." And in that moment, millions of viewers at home nodded in agreement. Even Obama's supporters took notice that, of course, many came to the former president's defense. His supporters praised his calm reaction, his refusal to escalate the situation, and his composure under unexpected pressure. They pointed out his record, his diplomacy, and his history of rising above political theater. But even among Obama's base, there was a quiet acknowledgement that Kennedy's words hit a nerve. "I respect Obama," one post read, "but Kennedy said what a lot of us are thinking. We're tired of the speeches. We need change, not applause." The impact wasn't limited to social media. Late-night hosts began rewriting their opening monologues. Morning news anchors debated the moment over coffee. Podcasts released emergency episodes. Memes flooded Reddit. Instagram was filled with quote cards. This wasn't just a viral moment. It was a national conversation. And perhaps the most surprising shift came from those who had previously dismissed Kennedy as a sideshow in Washington, known for his Southern wit, quirky one-liners, and no-nonsense soundbites. Kennedy had often been treated as comic relief by political elites. He was the guy who made headlines for his zingers, not his substance. But that changed. "I never thought I'd say this," one political commentator tweeted, but Kennedy just made the most honest political statement I've heard in years. Cable news panels were divided. Some said he had broken decorum, undermined unity, and crossed a line. Others hailed him as a truth-teller, a disruptor, a voice the establishment couldn't silence. And while insiders debated strategy and optics, regular Americans were sharing the clip with their friends and family. "Did you see this? Watch this guy, he's saying what we've been yelling at the TV for years." Finally, someone called it out to their face. Kennedy, meanwhile, stayed quiet, at least for the first few hours. No tweet, no statement, no follow-up interview. He let the moment speak for itself, and that silence only made it louder in a world that often moves too fast to remember anything. This moment stuck. It wasn't just news. It was a shift, a public reminder that not everyone is willing to play by the script. And when someone breaks it, people listen to as the internet continued to buzz. One thing became clear: whether you loved him or hated him, John Kennedy had changed the conversation. And in a country exhausted by noise, that one voice cutting through made people sit up and pay attention. The lights had dimmed. The summit had ended. The stage was empty, but the impact of what happened between Barack Obama and Senator John Kennedy still rippled far beyond that D.C. venue. In the immediate aftermath, neither Obama nor Kennedy made any joint public appearance. No handshake, no joint statement, no photo op. The silence between them spoke volumes. But behind the scenes, sources close to the former president shared something surprising. According to an advisor who requested anonymity, Obama was reflective after the event. He wasn't angry. He was thoughtful. "Maybe I needed that wake-up call," he reportedly said. That it was a rare admission from a man known for his polished delivery and careful messaging. But even Obama couldn't deny the power of what had just unfolded. Kennedy's words had hit a chord not only with the American people, but with him. 2 As for Kennedy, The response was overwhelming. His office was flooded with emails, phone calls, and social media messages. Thousands of Americans, many of them young, frustrated, and politically disillusioned, reached out to say thank you. Some wrote that it was the first time they'd ever felt heard. Others said it was the first time they'd ever felt inspired to speak up, but it wasn't all praise. Far from it. Critics came out swinging. Some called his speech a stunt, a distraction, even a disgrace. Media personalities accused him of hijacking a moment meant for unity. Political analysts argued he had used drama to steal the spotlight. But here's the thing, no one ignored him. You can argue about his style, one columnist wrote, but you can't deny he said what a lot of Americans feel deep down. What separated this moment from so many others in politics wasn't policy, it was passion. Kennedy didn't show up with charts or bullet points. He showed up with conviction. And that, more than anything else, is what stuck with people. For days, headlines dissected the clash. Kennedy drops truth bomb at Obama summit, disruption or democracy. A moment to remember. One unscripted speech stops the nation, but beyond the headlines, something deeper was happening. Across living rooms, classrooms, coffee shops, and comment sections, Americans were having a new conversation. Not just about Kennedy, not just about Obama, but about what it means to be heard, what it means to be represented, and what it takes to stand up when no one's expecting it. Kennedy didn't just challenge a president. He challenged a system. He reminded people that politics isn't supposed to be theater. It's supposed to be real. And that message hit hardest with one group in particular. Young people that in the days following the speech, clips of Kennedy's final words began circulating widely on youth-driven platforms like TikTok and Instagram Reels. His quote, spoken with no fanfare, no camera cuts, just his voice, became an instant anthem. Don't be afraid to speak, even if they try to stop you. Your voice matters more than you think. Those words lit a fire. High school students shared it in group chats. College debate teams opened their meetings by playing the clip. Community organizers and activists started quoting it on flyers, on podcasts, and in speeches of their own. Kennedy had tapped into something rare, a moment that wasn't just political. It was personal. He didn't have to say, "I see you," to America's younger generation. He proved it with his actions, and that's what made all the difference. Whether you agreed with his politics or not, whether you thought his delivery was disruptive or brave, you had to admit, he showed up. He spoke out. And in a time when many people feel like their voices are drowned out by lobbyists, corporations, and carefully managed sound bites, that one unscripted truth cut through the noise. The news cycle moved on, and other stories began to take its place. This moment remained etched in memory. It wasn't just a confrontation. It was a call to courage. And there you have it. One bold moment, one unscripted voice, and a message that shook the political stage. If this story made you think, feel, or see things differently, hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it. Don't forget to subscribe for more real, raw stories that the mainstream won't tell you. Drop a comment below. Whose side are you on in this debate? Obama or Kennedy? Or maybe just the truth? Until next time, stay bold, stay curious, and remember, your voice matters.